Delaware Senator Chris Coons is our first person once again this week. Last week we focused on Iran and your support of the nuclear deal, and this week we are just catching up with you. So let's relax a little bit. But I do want to just touch on Iran. Do you feel like the media attention that was given to whether lawmakers were going to approve or disapprove of the agreement, has that elevated your profile in D.C.?
I don't really know whether it's elevated my profile in D.C. It's certainly given me an opportunity, I hope, to communicate with Delawareans and with folks nationally who are paying attention to this. It is a very complicated subject, and there's a lot of both technical details and a lot of security consequences. So my hope is that as we move forward from the vote on the deal and we begin the very difficult work of figuring out how to effectively enforce it, how to live into a safer future, and how to defend our vital ally Israel, that we will actually reach across the aisle and have a more thoughtful, bipartisan approach to it. I'm giving another speech at the Carnegie Endowment in Washington about the policy implications of moving forward with this agreement. And it's my hope that I'll be able to secure some bipartisan support for legislation that will address some of the remaining concerns that I think many senators have.
Okay, fingers crossed. You're kind of racking up the frequent flyer miles going back and forth to Africa. I mean, we're talking days you're just back from Africa. Tell me about this most recent trip and some of the things that you were doing over there.
Well, in my most recent trip, I led a congressional delegation. We had 3 senators and 7 members of the House at different points. Some members joined us for only a few countries. We went to Senegal, Ethiopia, Rwanda, Gabon, and Cabo Verde. In Gabon, I spoke at the African Growth and Opportunity Act conference, the AGOA conference, and had a chance to advocate for Delaware chicken. It was a chance to meet with our ambassador for trade and with the South African trade minister and ambassador and try and resolve this issue one more time. We met with, the whole delegation met with the presidents of Senegal, of Rwanda, and of Gabon for about an hour, hour and a half. Had really good, frank, detailed discussions along with our ambassadors to try and advance some of our concerns around wildlife trafficking, around security issues and counterterrorism, around economic development and our partnerships. We also got to visit a wide range of projects that are funded by American taxpayer dollars and get a sense of which of them are spending those dollars wisely and well, and which perhaps not so well. We got to visit an irrigation project the Millennium Challenge Corporation is funding. We got to visit a solar project in Rwanda. Actually, Bono came and spent the day with us there.
I heard there was a picture floating around.
There's a picture floating around of me
with
Bono. We got to visit a project in Ethiopia that DuPont Pioneer is funding that's helping produce highly productive maize. It's a hybrid maize seed corn that'll feed many more Ethiopians. And we got to visit a hospital in Rwanda that's caring for desperately sick HIV infected children. That is an important partnership between American children's hospitals and this sort of elite children's hospital. It's the highest capability hospital they have. The difference between that hospital and the AI Children's Hospital here is just striking. How desperately, how hard those nurses and doctors are working to try and cure children with very limited capabilities there.
Avian influenza is kind of a big thing on your agenda. Let's talk about that. I know that in Delaware you are meeting with students, university community, people in the university community about how to address it. How bad is this issue?
Well, this is the first major outbreak of highly pathogenic avian influenza in the United States in years. It's bad in 2 different ways. First, it leads to whole flocks of birds having to be put down. So millions of birds have already been lost in the Pacific Northwest and in the Midwest. To be clear, high-path AI has not come to the East Coast at all yet.
Okay.
But because it is spread from wild birds to birds in flocks, and those wild birds migrate up and back to the Arctic, and the birds that are about to begin migrating back down through Delaware are up in the Arctic now with birds from the Midwest who are carrying high-path AI, there's a very real risk it'll be brought to this area later this year. It would allow other countries, like South Africa, to impose a ban on importing any American poultry that would last for several years. So it has consequences immediately and consequences in the long term.
Looking for an update on where things stand, we're changing gears here to with the VA hospital in Delaware. Have you checked in with them recently about how they're addressing this ongoing backlog with its patients?
I do think they've made real progress in reducing the backlog in terms of the timeliness of access and the access to more specialized or expert physicians. That's at the main VA here. One of the unresolved areas where I think we need to keep staying on them to make progress is in the CBOCs, the community-based outreach centers that are downstate, where access to specialty medicine is actually difficult in the broader community, not just in the VA-served community. And so we need to keep working to make sure that a broader range of physicians and specialties are readily available, and to stay on top of resolving the investigations that are, I think, not yet fully complete and resolved in an appropriate and thorough way.
How often are you checking in with them?
Well, I've got staff that are handling veterans cases regularly, me personally about once a month.
Okay. I want to talk about Donald Trump. He's leading in a number of polls.
Yes.
Does that make him a formidable candidate?
Well, I mean, what makes a formidable candidate is who Americans are willing to vote for. So if he actually has a significant double-digit lead in Iowa, I guess he's a formidable candidate. I personally, he doesn't speak to me as a candidate, but I guess Americans are inspired by his sort of bold, dramatic flair. He's certainly fun to watch on Celebrity Apprentice, but this is a presidential election, not a reality TV show, and there are some striking inconsistencies in his positions, things that he's publicly supported in recent years and that he's now supporting that really don't reflect the Republican Party platform at all. So it was interesting to hear him say he wants to raise taxes on the wealthiest Americans. There's no Republican in the Senate that's advocating raising taxes on the wealthiest Americans, but candidate Trump has been saying that recently. Some of his positions on immigration are, I think, startling. Some of the emotion behind it and some of what I think people are hearing. I'm looking forward to his releasing actual position papers when I think some of the emotion of this will settle down, and then we'll get into the more serious discussion about what would he actually do as president.
And real quickly, would you support Biden running for president, Joe Biden?
Yes, I've called the vice president and said to him I was honored to campaign for him in Iowa in 2008, and I'd be honored to do it again. I know Secretary Clinton well, Senator Clinton. I think she was a seasoned and capable secretary. I think she was a great senator and would be a terrific president. But as a longtime admirer of the vice president, I think he is our strongest voice for the middle class. I think he understands and connects with the working people of America. And I think he has more experience in foreign policy and national security than anybody who could run. So I'm waiting to hear from Joe, and I'm eager to make sure that he has the time to make the decision that's really right for him and his family.
Okay, Senator Coons, great having you. Thank you so much for being our first person this week.